introduce Shannon. Shannon McLeod was born and raised in Jayus, Mississippi. At the age of 20, he moved to Lafayette, where he met his wife, Lily. They've been married for 33 years and are blessed with two wonderful children, Brandon. And Brandon is a professional drummer, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And Millie. Shannon worked for Halliburton for 10 years and then Weatherford for 20 years. In 2019, he left Weatherford to take on a new role at Frontier International, where he currently works. Shannon found salvation as a young boy, but veered off the path for many years. He rededicated his life to Christ in 1998 while attending Family Life Christian Fellowship in Lafayette. During that time, his love for praise music grew, and he began writing and performing songs while sharing his story of faith throughout churches and in and around the area. And that's what he's going to do. Please welcome Shannon McLeod.
Thank you. Man, that's Jayus, Mississippi. Very small town. I met a guy earlier, he said he was from Brookhaven, or his wife was from Brookhaven. And I asked him, did he know where Jayus was? And I could tell he didn't, but he had to pass through it to get back home. So that's how small that place is. I went to school and graduated with the same 16 kids I started with in K4. Thank you. Was that on purpose or was that me? But no, how I got here is I was born to a 19-year-old mom at the time, a 20-year-old dad. That marriage lasted about 6 months, I guess. I really don't know. That's what I was told. I was the second. I had a brother. They had one earlier than me, believe it or not. He was 12 months older than me. Can you turn that back up just a tad, sir? Thank you. And so my dad, I come to find out, I live with my mom, and my grandpa gave us a place to live in an old school bus that he had on his property, and he made it into a house for us. And come to find out, my real dad, I wasn't always a McLeod. I was born Shannon Holmes, and I was adopted when I was 3 years old. And come to find out, I never knew who my real dad was, even though my mom was married to him. But later on, I found out through people. I grew up, now this is weird, okay? I grew up in the same town. He was from Columbia, Mississippi, where JS is just 20 miles away. I grew up in the same town he was from, but I never knew him, never saw him, never could talk about him. I'm like, who is this man? And later I found out he was a musician, a very successful musician. And like I said, his name was a cuss word growing up in my house. And I resented music my whole life, even though I knew it was in me to sing. I could write songs, just everything. And but he ended up, his claim to fame was in the early 70s. He was the keyboard player for George Jones, Tammy Wynette, lots and lots of others. But that's all he did, is just play music. And if you know most musicians, they're broke. They don't make much money. And the ones that you see that make the money, they don't make it off of the songs, they make it off their sales. So So later on, I couldn't wait to get out of there. The first week after I graduated high school in 1988, the next week I was on a drilling rig in the Gulf. And I stayed there for 6-7 months, and I'd go in the galley and I'd see these Halliburton guys, and I'd be, man, how I get a job doing what y'all do? Every time I come in here, you in the galley. You know, here I am, a roustabout. And they said, hey, go to Lafayette, Louisiana, put an application. I never heard of Lafayette. So when I was catching out of Morgan City, at that time we were and some of you probably remember, I was working on the Lena Tower for Exxon. They had dual 24 and dual 25 on that rig, on that same platform. And as soon as we hit the bank, I got in my little Chevy lug truck and I headed to Lafayette down Highway 90. Got there, put an application in, was headed back, no cell phones or anything like that in them days. And got home and they left a message on my phone. Said, hey, we got a job opening in Lafayette. If you want it, come on. I said, so I called them up and I said, look, I got a long way to come. And I said, if you ain't gonna hire me, I ain't coming. You know, I'm not gonna drive that far. But anyway, they hired me and I stayed, and it wasn't I was in Lafayette 2 weeks, and I was in a little place called Chris's Po' Boy. Some of you might know that place. One of the best po' boys I've ever eaten. And this girl waited on me, and I'd go there after work. I'd go there during work, and a bunch of us, and we were making up tools in a shop. Man, we were dirty and filthy, and so that's the only place I knew to go in Lafayette to eat. And I was living in Carencro, and the one Friday night we got off work, and I was able to clean up and stuff, and I went in there, and I see this girl. And she came and waited on me, and she didn't recognize me because I didn't have them red coveralls on. And when I finished eating, I wrote on a napkin, and I said, new in town, something to the effect, I said, I'd like to meet you away from this place. Put my phone number on there. Well, I got up and left, and she come running out the door. And she said, hey, she said, Shannon, I don't call boys. She said, here's my number. You can call me. Well, I never was away from her to this day. And that was December, that was almost my birthday, February 9th. My birthday's the 10th. And I've been with her ever since. And a lot of that had to do with my raising, because I always said, no matter how hard it gets, I'm not going anywhere. You can leave, but I'm not, you know. So later on, we had 2 children, and you know, they say talent skips a generation. Well, I believe that to be true, because my son was born in 1991, and as John was saying, he's been a musician his whole life since he was this high. He beat on drums and worried us to death, and that's all we heard. Well, not only that, today he travels the world. He's played with some really big musicians behind him. He has his own band here in Kingwood. But he's on 3 registries, guitar, rhythm guitar, lead guitar, and drums. And occasionally, I don't know if y'all know much about the music industry, but a lot of these musicians don't travel with their band. especially if they're not making $1 million a show or what, like, you know, the big ones. But they'll call if they know they're in Houston. They'll call. There's a professional registry. I need a guitar player. Okay, what genre? And he's in 3 genres as well. But they say I need a country guitar player for 5 shows in the Houston area, and he'll go play with one of the majors, you know, and you think, man, he's playing for Tim McGraw or somebody like that, and man, he's making a lot of money. Those guys get paid nothing. You know, if you break it down, you know, for 4 hours, they'll get paid $300 or $400. And they'll just send him an MP3 player, and he'll get in his car and listen to it on the way down to the Toyota Center or something, and sit there and play for 2 hours behind them, you know. But that's how it works. Well, anyway, when he was a young boy, we put him in a public school in Lafayette, and he, the first day or second week in the school, the first day for me to bring him to school, I got out the car and I started walking him to the class, and this lady hollers at me, "Hey!" I'm like looking around like, what's going on? She said, "You can't walk that boy to class like that." I said, okay. Turned around with his hand, and Michael knows these stories. I turned around and I walked out and I brought him with me. She said, "Where are you going?" I said, "We going home." And that day I walked in the house and I told my wife, I said, "I don't care where he goes to school, but he won't go back to school there." And we literally live right behind Family Life Christian Fellowship Church. Some of you may know where that's at in Lafayette. But we lived in that subdivision right there. And she called the school, and school already started. She called the school, and they had one opening in a K4 class. And she said, do we have to go to church for him to go to school? She said, "No, ma'am," because we was as far away from church as you wanted to be. And she said, "No, just bring him." So I was able to cut a hole in my gate and put a gate there, and my son walked there right to his classroom and right back home for 8 years. It was K through 8 at the time. And later on, we had Millie, 8 years after Brandon, my daughter. Amazing little girl. She finished. I transferred to Houston in 2014 with Weatherford, and Millie went to Kingwood High. She finished Kingwood High, 22 out of 840 something kids, and went off to Seoul, South Korea for college. And we were blown away. Really didn't want it, you know, little 100-pound little old girl. I'm scared to death. All I know about Korea is North Korea and everything we ever heard about it, you know. So at that time, I was campaigning for Dan Crenshaw. He's a good friend of mine. Worked with his dad, Jim, at Weatherford a long time. Was there when Dan even got blown up, actually. And I heard that Dan was going to be running for Congress, and he just happened to be in my district. So all the videos you've seen of Dan, I took that video, and I have it. It's right here, of him running across the bridges and all that stuff. But Dan, he was the first one I called, and I said, "Dan," I said, "my daughter's thinking about going to college in Seoul." I said, "She's not thinking. She's got a plane ticket. She's got the whole 9 yards. She's going." And he said, "Don't worry about it. I got you." I said, "Okay." And He said, if something happens, at that time, Dan was, he has that secret clearance and all that, and he could get on them calls and stuff and listen and all that. He said, well, if something happens, Shannon, we'll get her out of there. Don't worry about it. I said, okay, I'll let you know. Well, anyway, she went over there. Took her 5 years to finish because she got beat up with COVID and had to come back and couldn't go back, but she finished, and now she works for Disney in marketing for Disney, but got an international business degree and just doing really well. So going back to Brandon, my son, and she finished school at Family Life as well, out the gate, back through the house, 8 years after him. And so I'm getting to the point now, okay? Why I'm here is one morning, I don't know why, our life was in turmoil. And one morning I got up, it was a Sunday morning, and I got up, I took a shower, and I got dressed. And I grew up Southern Baptist, and every morning we went to church, you had to dress up. It wasn't, you didn't wear blue jeans and all that. You dressed up. Boy, I got dressed up. My wife was looking at me, and she's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to that church back there behind the house. She said, all right, I am too. Wait up. We got ready, and the first person that some of you may know, but Kevin Quick, he's no longer with us, but was the first person that I saw when I walked up to that church. And he's like, oh my God, he said, the roof's gonna fall down. And all of that, and so we started going to church there, and like I said, I resented music. I rededicated my life to the Lord, and I resented music my whole life, honestly, y'all. At 5 years old, I had a guitar that was signed by all these musicians, and it belonged to George Jones. And I beat that guitar upside trees until there was nothing left of it. Because I just resented what happened to me, and I'm saying, man, if I would have grown up with that man in my house, and my whole life, people knew who my dad was, but I never knew the man. I knew he was Marvin Holmes. I knew that, but I never knew who he was, but everybody that I would see, and still to this day, if I go there, man, your daddy could sure play that piano, man, and that's all I heard. That's all I heard my whole life, and I resented it so much that I wouldn't even listen to the radio that much when I was growing up. And because all I thought about was, man, if I could have grown, in my heart I love music, and I had a talent at a very young age. I could listen to a song and I'd know it. Like I could listen to it one time and I'd know all the words to it. And I said, if I'd have grown up with this guy, man, there's no telling where I would be, But I gave my life back to the Lord that day in church. And what I want to share with you guys is a couple songs, and they're all original songs. The first song is, the name of it's Look What the Carpenter Made of Me. And you want to put it on? But now last night, look, I haven't practiced with this track because I was going to play the guitar, but I'm not a guitar player. I strum a guitar. I write songs with a guitar. And I was like, I told my son last night, I said, Brandon, I said, man, I'm not going to play that. I was going to play it. I was like, no. And I told him last night, I said, I need a track, man. He said, how many songs you doing? I said, 3. He said, I got you, don't worry. Literally, he wasn't upstairs 20 minutes because I have a full recording studio, well, he does, in my house. And he comes down and he's like, gives me this track, and he done went up there and recorded all 3 of them songs. Just the acoustic part of it, but that's, So I've heard it, but I haven't sang to it. So y'all, if I mess it up, don't blame me. Give me a little bit more of that, please, sir. Thank you. Well, that old building I was back then was falling down and caving in. I was condemned by Satan's hands. Oh, but God had other plans. Then I met a man one day. He was a carpenter by trade, with 3 nails and a dogwood tree. Look what the carpenter made of me. I was just a building falling down from years of neglect and sin. And just as Satan came to tear me down, that's when Jesus stepped in. And through all the trash, the broken glass, he saw what I could be. And here today I stand and say, look what the carpenter made of me. Let us not judge by what we see. That sinner man was you and me. But let us look down deep inside like Jesus did for you and I. When we were just a building falling down with years of neglect and sin. And just as Satan came to tear us down, that's when Jesus stepped in. And through all our trash, the broken past, he saw what we could be. And here today I stand and say, look what the carpenter made of me. Here today I stand and say, look what the carpenter made of me. Thank you, thank you. So anyway, that came out, and later on, I started writing these songs. They just started coming and coming and coming, and I'm like, man, I never knew I could do this. Really, because I didn't know, I couldn't read music, but I could hear music. I couldn't play a guitar, and I would literally write the song, and I'd bring it to my son, and I'd say, Brandon, I said, listen to this, man. And I'd just sing it to him. And you know, when you're writing songs, they say, well, you got to have a hook. It's like writing a book, you know. Most songs have a hook, and John, you know what I'm talking about there. And and I had nothing. I would start the song just like you just heard it, from word number one. I didn't have a hook, I didn't have a chorus, I didn't have anything. I'm telling you, brother, that's where God, that's just pouring something out of you or into you. And so I wrote that song, and then the Lord just started giving me all of these songs. And one day I went to the pastor there at church, and I said, he was like, Shannon, you know, he knew that I was singing and stuff, and I'd always done a veterans deal. I do that still to this day. God bless the USA. I did that for many years at veterans events. And he's like, man, he said, how about you come and sharing some of your songs with the church? And I'm like, man, that'd be perfect, you know. And at that time, I had made this CD right here, and all original songs on there. And they opened up the church for us to go in, and we rehearsed, because it was right in my backyard, and my son was the drummer, and all of that. And I went in there, and we rehearsed these 3 songs. I was nervous. Man, there's 1,500 people in this church. I grew up in a Baptist church, Southern Baptist, singing, you know, I'll Fly Away. And we rehearsed these 3 songs like you wouldn't believe, because I had full band. My son's playing drums. I'm just so proud, so proud. We get there that Sunday morning, and I've never heard an audible voice of God, ever. But I'm behind these big curtains. Got the sound guy way back in the back. He has the track that we're gonna do. And I walked through that curtain, and something inside me and said, you're not gonna do none of those songs. And I'm like, I freeze for a second, even to the point where I even told Brother Todd, I said, the pastor, I said, I need a minute. He said, you all right? I said, yeah. He said, it's okay. He knows the story. And I said, I just need a minute. So I go back and I tell him, I said, we're not doing any of these songs. I said, we've been practicing, man. We got it down perfect. We're going to do one y'all never done before. And little did I know, I got up there, man, and I was weeping. I mean, I was messed up inside, y'all. I'm really messed up. And all I was thinking about is just going to be a disaster. They even told me I could sell these CDs in the foyer. Didn't sell one. And the Lord spoke to me and said, sing this song. So I told the guys, I said, we're going to do this. I sang that song. Everybody out there looking at me. Like, the name of the song is, Jesus, if you're listening, please send my daddy home. That's the song that I sing. I had others lined up. And we left the church that day just distraught. Man, I didn't want, I was just, didn't, like I said, I didn't, if I sold a couple CDs, that's fine. I wasn't there for that, right? I had a job. But I didn't understand. And I couldn't understand. I'd never sang that song but 2 or 3 times myself. And about a year goes by, and I'm asking God, I was like, why? And I've sang in other venues and all of that, but I never sang that song. And I was like, God, why? I had it all planned out. Why did you do this to me? Embarrass me. You set me up and you embarrass me in front of all these people. A year goes by, I'm riding down the road. All Lafayette roads are 2 lane. And I passed the preacher up. And this is a year that goes by, and then my phone rings. And he's like, "Hey, Shannon, how you doing?" I said, "I'm good, Brother Todd. How are you?" He's like, "Man, I've been meaning to call you for 2 or 3 months now." He said, "You remember when you sang that song in church?" I said, "Yes, sir, I do. I remember." He said, "Man, there was a mother and a daughter there that morning." And this gets to me all the time. He said she had just left her husband. And when you sang that song, she said she left that church service, went home, reconciled her marriage, and they have been tithing members of Family Life for over 6 to 8 months or whatever. And this is the song and the song was written about a little boy. It wasn't written by a little girl. So this is it. Jesus, if you're listening, please send my daddy home. Walking past my son's room one night, heard the words he'd prayed. Hearing him talk about me that way and all of the mistakes I made. The words he said hit me hard, they seemed to come out of the blue. Well, nothing in the world would make me feel like the words coming out of that room. When he said, Mama told Daddy about Jesus and how his love was true. But Daddy had no time to listen, he had too much to do. But Mama never gave up on him. She said, Jesus is the way. If Daddy could see Jesus in her, he may come to church someday. Well, Daddy spends most of his time working late, it seems. At times I call to say hello, but the phone just rings and rings. I pray God don't give up on him. You know that Mom and I won't. And Jesus, if you're listening, please send my daddy home. And tell him that we love him and how much we miss him when he's gone. I may be too young to understand what goes on between moms and dads, but Mom and I have been missing him so long. Jesus, if you're listening, please send my daddy home. Jesus, if you're listening, please send my daddy home. All right, thank you. It's a pretty sad song when you think about it. Don't know how I got the words to that. So the last song that I'm going to do for you guys is a really, I think I've done everything sad today, But this one's really sad, and y'all gonna relate to this. This is even more sad than the first one. We go back to the first day I walked in that church. Remember, Kevin Quick said the walls are coming down. But the first time I got all dressed up, and my wife got dressed, and we're ready to go, and dragging the kids. And I walk into the church, no preaching, no music. They had this little guy standing behind the podium. He about 5 foot tall. His name was Chester Laverne, and I have permission to use his name. And he was giving his life's testimony. And it blew me away. Literally. He told how he worked with Cameron for 25 years. He was a regional manager for Cameron Wellhead in Lafayette. He had everything that you would think the American dream had. A beautiful wife who was a vice president of Chase Bank there in Lafayette. His daughter went to UL. He had everything you would want. Beautiful home, lots of property, just a gorgeous place. And I'm hearing this guy talk about his life, and I'm like, Well, he's the first one I ever heard speak in that church, and it, like I said, it mesmerized me. And he told how he went out. Well, I'll tell you later. But 6-7 months go by, and every time I see this guy, I tell my wife, "Hey, Lily, look, it's him." There's 1,500 people in this church, you know. And I was like, I need to meet him. I got to meet him. I'm just blown away. And so you heard of them Bible studies that you go to somebody's house? That's going to blow you away too. They said, y'all can join this Bible study. That's okay. So they sent us the address. Pull up to the house. Guess who opens the door? This little guy. I'm like, no way. No way. This is his house. I got him. I'm finna start asking him all kind of questions. Well, anyway, y'all, this guy, little bitty guy, he was an alcoholic, big time. So big that he hid it from his wife for 20 years. He would literally, his wife would buy cases and cases of Sprite and 7-Up, but he wanted a can. He didn't want it in a bottle or the jug. He would pour that out, and he was such an alcoholic, he went to every means of trying to hide it, right? And he told a story about how he would pour half that can out, and this is at 6 o'clock in the morning. He'd pour it out, and then he would fill it up with vodka, and he'd be drinking a Sprite can, you know, or Sprite or 7-Up out of the can. But he got tired of it one day. And this is what got me. Because I'm trying to picture this little guy. He's 150 pounds. He ain't 5'1". You're not that strong. He woke up one morning. His wife went off to the bank. His daughter went to UL there in Lafayette. And he walked to his drawer. And he said he had these voices in his head all the time. And they said he walked to his drawer, pulled out a 9mm. He walked out his back door, sat down by a tree in his backyard, and I saw all of this. He took me through the whole thing. And he pulled the trigger in his heart. It went clean through his heart. But he didn't die. The scar's still on the tree. Well, I don't know about now. It's been a while back, but it was there. I saw it. He said when he woke up, he was not a Christian. Never been to church in his life. He said when he woke up, it was a June morning, like June 15th, if I can remember right, like 11:30 in the morning. He said when he woke up, he felt nothing. He said he looked directly into the sun, and he said the sun was so bright I couldn't even open my eyes. He said it was so bright. And then he said, oh my God, it hit me. He just shot himself through the heart. His neighbor, they live on them like half-acre lots, you know, each house has. And his neighbor, the lady, was a nurse. And he said, I got to save myself. I don't want to die. I don't want to die anymore. He's bleeding out. He finally crawls to his neighbor's house. And she opens the door. She's an RN nurse. She opens the door and she sees him. And from there, he said he blacked out, but he woke up and he had a brother-in-law that was a believer, and he started praying for him, and they went in there and they gave him, he had multiple surgeries and all of that stuff. And this man, I'm seeing him give this testimony, and I'm looking at him like, y'all can imagine what I was thinking when I'm hearing him say this, you know. And so later on, he got saved, mended his marriage. It just a beautiful story. And God just put it on my heart to write a song about his life. And I walked up to him one day and I asked permission, and he said, yeah, you can do that. And it's kind of hard to put all of that in 3 minutes, you know. And so I got it done. I wrote it. I couldn't end it. I didn't know how to end it. Didn't have words to end it. And this 6-7 months go by, and I see him in church, and I pull him over. I said, Chester, I got that song almost done, man. I said, if you were writing your life, a song or a story about your life, I said, how would you end it? He said, with my last breath, I will praise the Lord. That's what he told me. I said, you just finished that song. I went home, finished it, sent it to him, got his approval, and we released it. So the name of this song is With My Last Breath. No media? Oh, sorry. I did the wrong one. That's the wrong one. I know y'all don't want me to do that one again. That's it. When all of life's troubles got me down, I knew I couldn't face them anymore. This little voice inside says give up as I stumble to the drawer. It said you're not gonna live here anymore. As I walk, sorry I messed up. As I walked across my backyard to the tree, I decided I would end my misery. as I press my shaky finger on the trigger of the gun. Much to my surprise, I saw the sun. You sent your angels to carry me, a brother to disciple me, and your spirit to guide my troubled soul, and a family who forgives and loves me even though. This is the happy part now. When I take the path I walked in my backyard, where your grace and mercy reach down in my heart, Lord, I'm ever grateful to you for my life and its new start. I'll always keep your word down in my heart. On my knees I will pray to you, my hands I will raise to you, and with my voice I'll say I love you, Lord. And with my last breath I will praise you, Lord. On my knees I will pray to you, my hands I will raise to you, and with my voice I'll say I love you, Lord. And with my last breath I will praise you, Lord. Thank y'all for having me today. And may God bless each and every one of you. And just remember, if you're struggling, you don't have to struggle alone. We can all reach out to somebody.